Hi, this is Claire from Papertrey, and today I'm going to show you how I made this card, and specifically how I make shaker cards. I don't have fancy tools to make shaker cards because I don't buy them because I don't make enough shaker cards to warrant buying them. If you make shaker cards a lot, then I've heard the We Are Memory Keepers fuse tool is really good, but if you're like me and you don't make shaker cards that often, and you want to see my janky way of making them, then continue watching. Alright, so I have this piece of craft cardstock from Papertrey Ink, and I stamped the Rustic Wreath from Papertrey Ink onto the cardstock using Versamark ink, and I'm just clear embossing it. I'm going to cut out the inside of the wreath so that the image, or the sentiment, can peek through, and that'll be a little window for the shaker. So next at this point, I'm just going to stamp and heat emboss the sentiment as well, which is from Hero Arts, and I just want to make a quick note, quick tangent, maybe it won't be quick, but whenever I do heat embossing, I use the EK Success powder tool, and I use it because the powder tool is supposed to help keep stray embossing powders from sticking where they're not supposed to, so it's just supposed to stick to where you put the sticky ink. I feel like the EK Success powder tool works pretty good at that, making sure that things are only where they're supposed to be. It's not like the best, but it's okay. It's definitely convenient. I was using cornstarch before, which I think worked a little bit better, but it wasn't as convenient. But this is my little tangent. It works. It's fine with any colored cardstock, I feel, except for black cardstock. I don't know why, but with black cardstock you can tell the powder's on there, and it's super hard to get all that powder off, so that you'll always have a slightly less black cardstock by the time you finish putting the powder over it and emboss everything. I mean, I've tried using a paintbrush to get stuff off. I've tried using like just a slightly damp wipe to get it off, using one of those dryer sheets to get it off, and nothing really works. And that's just my quick little rant about this tool. Just beware when you're using it on the black cardstock. It works okay with this card because I was kind of going for a chalkboard look, but it just, this is something kind of bugs me. I think there's a little pouch kind of, I think there's some kind of anti-static pouch, which I haven't tried, but just from seeing other card makers use it, I think it doesn't leave as much residue behind. So if I were to get another anti-static tool, that's what I would get. Also, if you're not looking to buy an anti-static powder tool, you can always just use cornstarch, which is what I was using before. What I did was, instead of just using a spoon to scoop it out and put it all over the cardstock, was I put it in an old sock, not like a dirty sock, an old clean sock, and then I would just use that to brush over the whatever cardstock I was trying to heat emboss. It was messy though, so that was one of the reasons why I didn't like to use it, because I couldn't really control it as much. But I feel like it did maybe a better job at keeping stray powders away, and I didn't have as much residue from it. So that's just my random tangent. So you learn about shaker cards, and you also learn about my little peeve with this tool. Anyway, now on to the shaker card. So for the actual pouch of the card, I just use a clear acetate envelope. It's just some packaging envelopes that I got from my local craft store. I think it was a package of 50 for like $2.50. And I use it to mail cards sometimes, or supplies, so that they don't get wet and get messed up. And when I cut it, I try to cut it at a corner where two sides are already sealed up from the envelope, so that when I go in to seal the envelope, I only have to seal two sides instead of three. I think it's just less work if you already have two sides sealed up for you. I mean, you could just like take two separate pieces of acetate and then adhere them together like this, but it's easier if some of the sides are already, taken care of for you. So I'm using foam tape to seal up this card because I'm going to be putting foam tape behind the rest of the panel, so I have to keep it all even. Foam tape is harder. It's a harder way of making the shaker cards, just because when you seal up the last little edge, you see I've got the third edge sealed up with a piece of foam tape. When you go to like fully seal everything up, get that one last edge sealed, it's kind of hard to stick the foam tape in there. I mean, you can do it, but it's a little tricky. So an easier way of doing it would just be to use washi tape. I've done that before too. But I use the foam tape here because I need to keep everything even on the card. So if you're not going for the extra dimension, then you want it to be easier than just go for the washi tape. So I'm just putting in the sequins, and they are sequins from Darice, and then I think some sequins from Avery Elle as well. And I'm just kind of eyeballing to make sure that I have enough sequins in there, but not too many so that it's completely covering the sentiment. I'm okay if it's covering the sentiment a little bit because, I mean, it's a shaker card, so you can shake things around and then you can see the sentiment completely. But I don't want it to be totally covered. So now that I have all that, all those sequins in there, and I'm happy with that, right now I'm just covering the leaves of this wreath. I decided to keep this clip in to show you that this was not part of the original plan. Or, I mean, it was part of the original plan, but it didn't make it to the final cut. I wanted the leaves to be filled in, but I ended up deciding that the Versamark didn't fill them in the way I wanted them to. So I dry embossed that craft panel using the wood grain impression plate from Papertrey Ink. And now this is kind of the tricky part, sealing up that last little edge. That's one of the reasons why I sped it up, because it took me a while to actually do it. But yeah, so I just wanted to show you how I did that. If you're using glitter or smaller items to fill up your shaker card, then you probably want to go with the washi tape because you can completely seal it up. It's really hard to completely seal it up with foam tape. Like, there was a little bit of a gap between the two pieces of foam when I finally sealed it up, but it was okay for this card because the shakers, the sequins couldn't get out through that tiny little gap. But like I said, if you're using glitter, then you probably want to use washi tape because it will completely seal everything up. Now that that's all sealed up and ready to go, I'm just going to adhere everything together. And then I decided, as an extra little touch, that I would invert the corners of the panel using my little scallop scissors. It's one of my favorite tricks, actually, is to round corners of cards or anything, or to invert corners. I just use my scallop scissors because they're already like that nice circular, even shape, so I don't actually have a corner rounder punch. These scissors are like 25 cents each. They're way cheaper. And then you can kind of like, they're more custom too. You can make them smaller or bigger. I don't know. I like the freedom I get from using the scissors. I don't know exactly why I wanted to invert the corners on this. I just thought there was something that should be done about those corners. And rounding it wasn't really cutting it. So I decided to get a little crazy and invert them, which is not something I've done before, but whatever, I did it. So now that everything's all good to go and adhered, I decided, like I mentioned earlier, that the Versamark colored leaves wasn't really cutting it. I think it was because the sentiment was white, and I wanted to bring white in somewhere else. So I used my Sakura gel pen to color in the leaves, and I used about 2 or 3 coats for each leaf. If you had like a fresher gel pen, mine's like 5 years old, I think, then you might not need to go over it with so many coats. But if you only go over once or twice, then you can usually kind of tell where the pen lines are. So that's why I did several coats on each leaf. I mean, it didn't take forever either. It took like 5 minutes. And when I was filling in the leaves, I did a circular motion because that made the filling in of the leaves more seamless. So here's the card that I filmed again. And this card is actually the first card that I made when I was working on these projects. I didn't really like it though, so that's why I filmed the second one. If you have any questions, then just leave them in the comment box or leave them on my blog, and I will try to have a list of supplies both on the YouTube video description box and on my blog. So that's pretty much the sketchy way of how I make pocket or shaker cards. Thanks for watching, and God bless. Bye.